Hey everyone, I just wanted to show up today and I wanted to come on live normal because I know a lot of people are working and aren't home during the day when I went live last week. But I just wanted to pop on this week to wish everyone a great second week of our focus on being healthy through the holidays. And I wanted to find out how everyone's doing with last week's kind of action steps about tracking your food and what have you learned by looking at what you've been eating for the past 5 days or a week or so. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what you're discovering about your connection with food. If you were able to identify a food that you could offer to yourself if you're craving something, let me know in the comments what that food is for you. I know last week I mentioned that my food was carrots, and I've been tracking as well, and I've found that I've gotten a little bit off course, with some of the portions and things that I thought I knew from sight. And so sometimes it's really good to just track your food for a short time just so you can kind of realign and make sure that you're still doing what you've set out to do with your health and wellness goals and with your food and your portions. But we do need to talk about, if we're going to talk about the holidays, we do need to talk about another key factor for calorie intake that often gets us without even really realizing. And that is when we talk about our beverages. And it really shouldn't come as any surprise that this is something that people struggle with during the holidays, because when we go out to parties, there's more opportunity to maybe have alcoholic beverages and punches that might be mixed with carbonated sodas or calorie dense beverages. And a lot of these beverages really don't do much for us physically or nutritionally. There's not a lot of benefit to them. So a lot of us will consume upwards of an entire day's worth of calories in our beverage choices. So we really need to be mindful and aware of what we're consuming. If you have just a small thing of juice at breakfast, and then you have a cup of coffee with sugar and cream, and then you have maybe some sweet tea at lunch with your sandwich, and then you get home from work and maybe you have another cup of coffee later in the day, and then you might have a soda with dinner and maybe a glass of wine after dinner to unwind, and before you know it, you've imbibed or drunk almost an entire day's worth of calories just in beverages. And so you're not really getting a lot of nutritional bang for your buck. So as we approach the holidays, we really need to be mindful and aware of what we're consuming in the form of beverage calories. And for me, those who've been following me for a while know that I was horrified when I was starting to lose weight, when I realized that the my favorite go-to beverage at Dunkin' Donuts, which was an iced caramel swirl latte, was the equivalent of 18 teaspoons of sugar in one drink. And that's insane. That's way more sugar than one person needs to be consuming in a 24-hour period. And there were days that, shockingly, I need to confess, I had more than one of those drinks. And so it was really, really eye-opening for me when I first learned that. And since those days, I've really tried to focus on, you know, maintaining my hydration through water primarily, and that is kind of my go-to beverage is water. I do most days I have a cup of coffee in the morning and that's it. I do occasionally still treat myself to one of those 18 teaspoons of sugar coffee beverages, but I am always fully aware, and I've always saying, yeah, I'll take 18 teaspoons of sugar today when my husband goes to order. But I can't do it in a state of blindness anymore. I'm aware that that's what that beverage costs me calorically and in the sugar content department, which is an area where I struggle. And so I can't just go into it blindly anymore. I can't just be like, oh yeah, give me 3 of those today, and not think every single time 18 teaspoons of sugar. So what are you consuming that you're not sure of the caloric impact on your day, or what beverages are going in and how are those adding up and how are they contributing to your calorie intake for the day? Because soda is a big one, and that was one of the very few foods in the very beginning that I took off the table for myself because I knew that I could fill up on soda, and the carbonation, kind of contributes to that full feeling. And so you can really not be doing much for yourself nutritionally. And so I realized it was really just empty sugar calories and I didn't need, and I needed to be working on my hydration for real. And so I really dedicated myself to finding out what the right amount of water was for myself to consume. And if you don't know, it's actually if you take your body weight in pounds and divide that in half, that's how many ounces of water you should consume every day. And so if you're not doing that right now, that's okay. I don't recommend that you wake up tomorrow and start drinking half your weight in ounces of water if you haven't been all along, because you could really hurt yourself adding that on way too quickly. So just start with one glass. Where can you insert one glass of water in your day to begin to increase your hydration level to get to half your body weight in ounces? And it may feel unachievable at this moment if you're heavier, where I was thinking there is no way I can drink half my body weight in ounces, but I could add one. I can add one here in the morning, and I can add an extra one when I take my vitamins or my supplements. And I looked for places naturally occurring in my day where I could add one glass at a time. And I just focused on that one glass, not 150 ounces, which at the time felt completely overwhelming for this person who had been drinking sodas and 18 teaspoons of sugar coffee. Um, it was a lot, and I didn't think I could do it. And so when I looked at it, just was one glass. Can I add one glass? It was achievable and it was doable. So I encourage you to figure out where you can add a glass of water into your day. If you're not at half your body weight in ounces of water, where can you add it? And being properly hydrated is going to help with your appetite. It's going to help when you are facing the holidays and going to the parties and going to the fancy dinners. If you're not fully hydrated, your hunger levels and your hunger hormones are all out of whack. And so you're craving food when you're actually dehydrated and dealing with some of those responses, but we interpret them sometimes as hunger. So we end up feeding this actual need for hydration as opposed to hydrating ourselves. So this week's challenge is really looking at your beverages. What are you consuming? How do those calories add up? And are they helping or are they hurting you? And are you consuming enough water to be properly hydrated? And if you're not, where can you add that extra cup? So those are my challenges to you this week. Know what's going in with your beverages. Look for ways you can substitute. One of my husband's big successes was giving up soda, and he switched to a sparkling water because he realized that he wanted the carbonation. For him, it was more about the carbonation. And so that sparkling water, albeit no sugar, no sweetness, no fruit juice whatsoever, no sweetness at all, it was still satisfying to him because it had the carbonation that he had been missing from his soda beverages. So sometimes you can substitute that out, but just be warned, there is no sugar in a sparkling seltzer water. So you might have a flavor, a fruity flavor, and you can even use fresh fruit to infuse a little more of that sweetness that you might be craving from a soda product, but then back it down to a point where you can feel comfortable about consuming your beverages and not feeling like it's taking away from your overall health and wellness. So that's my challenge to y'all as you go about this next week. Start looking at your beverages, and I hope to hear from you all in the comments about how you're doing and how this approaching the holidays with clean eating and knowing what we're eating and being able to offer ourselves some good choices. How is it going for you? I'd love to hear. So connect with me and let me know, and I'll see you next week.